You bought Bitcoin so you didn't have to trust a bank. You moved it off the exchange because you didn't trust that either. You learned self-custody because you wanted complete control over your money. So let me ask you one question. Who tells your wallet how much Bitcoin you own? Most people have never thought about it. Every time you open your wallet, check your balance, or send a transaction, your wallet asks a Bitcoin node what's happening on the network. And unless you're running your own, it's asking somebody else's. So you remove the bank, you remove the custodian, but you're still trusting someone else's computer to tell you whether your Bitcoin exists, whether your transaction went through, and what the state of the network is. Bitcoin was invented to eliminate trusted third parties. Yet almost every Bitcoiner still relies on one. By the end of this video, you'll understand what a node does, why it matters, and why it's something you absolutely should be running yourself. Because I believe running your own node is a crucial step towards true Bitcoin sovereignty. Most people see Bitcoin as one big leap. You buy Bitcoin and you're done. But that's not how it works. Bitcoin is a journey, and every step removes another layer of trust. The first step is buying Bitcoin, usually through an exchange. There's nothing wrong with that, we all start somewhere. But at that point, you don't really own the Bitcoin, the exchange does. They hold the keys, they decide whether you can withdraw, and they can even decide whether your account stays open. If they disappear tomorrow, you're in trouble. That's why people say, not your keys, not your coins. So you take the next step. You move your Bitcoin into your own wallet. Now, nobody can freeze your funds. Nobody can stop you from sending a transaction. That's the step most people think is the finish line. But there's one question almost nobody thinks to ask. How does your wallet know your balance? How does it know a payment arrived? Your wallet doesn't magically know. It has to ask someone. And if you're not running your own node, it asks someone else's. So you've taken custody of your money, but you haven't taken custody of the truth. You're still relying on somebody else's version of Bitcoin. Not because they're dishonest, but because you've handed them the job of verification. And self-verification is the entire point of Bitcoin. A node is your own window into the Bitcoin network. Instead of asking somebody else's computer what's happening, you're asking your own. That's it. It's not a miner. It's not a giant server in a data center. You don't need tons of equipment, and you certainly don't need a computer science degree either. A Bitcoin node is simply a small computer running Bitcoin software. Dedicated home server, a mini PC, even an old laptop if you're just getting started. The software does 3 jobs. First, it downloads the Bitcoin blockchain. Every block, every transaction, right back to the Genesis block in 2009. Not for a history lesson, but because you should refuse to trust anyone else's copy. Second, it checks every new block against Bitcoin's rules. Did the miner create more Bitcoin than they're allowed to? Rejected. Did they try to spend coins they don't own? Rejected. Does the block violate consensus? Rejected. Your node doesn't care who produced the block. It only cares whether it followed the rules. And third, when you use your wallet, your node broadcasts transactions directly to the network instead of routing it through somebody else's. Your wallet has become independent. It isn't asking for permission, it's communicating directly with Bitcoin through infrastructure that you control. You're no longer renting access to the network, you're participating in it. And at this point, you might be thinking, well, if my wallet already works, why bother? It's a fair question, because everything so far only matters if nodes actually have power over the network, and they do. In fact, they're the reason Bitcoin works at all. Most people think miners control Bitcoin. They don't. Miners propose blocks. Nodes decide whether these blocks count. Think of an exam. The miner writes the answers, but the node marks the paper. So the miner can hand in whatever they like. But if they doesn't follow the rules, it fails every single time. Now imagine every examiner in the world has exactly the same marking guide. That's Bitcoin. Thousands of independent nodes all checking the same rules. No CEO, no headquarters, no central authority. Just thousands of people independently verifying the same thing. That's why Bitcoin has stayed honest for more than 16 years. Not because everyone trusts each other, but because nobody has to. Every node checks everyone else's work. And this isn't just a theory. There was a moment in Bitcoin's history that proved it. The biggest test came in 2017. Bitcoin was more popular than ever. Transactions were piling up, fees were rising, the network was under pressure. Everyone agreed something needed to change. The question was, who gets to decide? Some of the biggest companies in Bitcoin wanted one solution. Many of the largest miners agreed. Even influential developers supported it. From the outside, it looked inevitable. The proposal was simple: increase Bitcoin's block size. Larger blocks meant, more transactions, and more transactions meant lower fees. Makes sense, right? But there was another side. Bigger blocks make the blockchain larger, and larger blockchains need more storage, more bandwidth, and more powerful hardware. Over time, fewer ordinary people can afford to run nodes, and if only governments, corporations, and massive data centers can run them, Bitcoin stops belonging to everyone, and it starts belonging to only who can afford that infrastructure. So the debate became bigger than the block sizes. Would Bitcoin prioritize convenience or decentralization? And here's the part that matters. The companies couldn't decide. The miners couldn't decide. Even the developers couldn't decide. Why? Because none of them actually controlled Bitcoin. That decision belonged to the people running nodes. When the proposed changes were released, thousands of node operators simply refused to accept them. Their nodes rejected the new rules, the software wasn't adopted, and the chain split. The people who wanted bigger blocks went their own way. That chain became Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin continued as if nothing happened. So think about this. Some of the largest companies, many of the biggest miners, and some of the most influential voices in Bitcoin all wanted one outcome. And yet they still couldn't force Bitcoin to change, because the people running the node said no. That's why no government or company or billionaire can wake up one morning and change Bitcoin's monetary policy. Not because they don't want to, but because they can't. The network won't let them. Nodes don't just observe Bitcoin, they protect it. So what actually changes when you run your own node? The first thing is certainty. When your wallet tells you you've received Bitcoin, it's because your node verified it. When you check your balance, you're reading your own copy of the blockchain. When you send a transaction, you're broadcasting through infrastructure that you control. You're no longer borrowing someone else's view of Bitcoin. You're looking at the network directly. The second benefit is one people rarely think about: privacy. Every time your wallet connects to someone else's node, it has to ask questions. What's the balance of this address? Has this transaction confirmed? What coins belong to this wallet? Ask the same stranger those same questions every single day, and eventually they'll build a pretty good picture of your finances. A third-party node can potentially see the addresses you're interested in when you check them, and how often you use your wallet. Depending on your setup, it may even associate that activity with your IP address. That doesn't automatically mean someone knows your identity or how much Bitcoin you own, and there are tools and techniques that help reduce that risk. But why expose that information at all if you don't need to? Running your own node keeps these requests inside your own infrastructure. Your wallet talks to your node talks to the network. Not because you're hiding something, but because your financial information belongs to you. Holding your own keys is one of the most empowering things you can do. But holding the keys and knowing what's happening are two different things. It's like owning a house, but always asking your neighbor whether the lights are on or whether a package has arrived. You own it, so why are you asking someone else what's happening inside of it? That's exactly what many Bitcoin users are doing. But they're still asking someone else's computer what's happening with their Bitcoin. Running a node changes all of that. Now you own the keys and you verify everything yourself. One protects your Bitcoin, the other protects your understanding of it. That is the difference between ownership and sovereignty. Now, I don't think everyone watching this needs to run out and buy a node today. If you've just bought your first few $100s worth of Bitcoin, your priority should be learning. Learn how wallets work. Learn about how backups work. Learn how to protect your seed phrase. Get comfortable with self-custody first. A node can come later. But if Bitcoin has become a meaningful part of your savings, if you're planning to hold it for years, if privacy matters to you, if you believe in decentralization, then running a node is one of the best investments you can make. Not because it makes you money, because it makes you independent. So how do you get started with running a node? It's much easier than most people imagine. There are 3 ways you can do it. The first is for people who just want something that works. You buy a dedicated server from a company like Start9, you plug it in, follow the guide, done. The second is building your own, a mini PC with a decent SSD drive, a bit of patience. You'll save some money, learn a lot, and end up with exactly the same result. And the third is using what you already have, an old desktop or a laptop gathering dust somewhere. And if you're just curious to learn, it's a great place to start. The point isn't buying the perfect hardware. The point is taking the next step. Whatever route you decide to choose, the process is broadly the same. Install Bitcoin software, let it synchronize with the network, connect your wallet, and start verifying Bitcoin for yourself. The initial sync can take a while. Your node isn't just downloading data. It's independently checking every block, every transaction since 2009. And once that's finished, it becomes one of the most boring computers you'll ever own. It simply sits quietly there, verifying, keeping you connected to the network day in, day out, without asking anything of you. And that's exactly what you want. Most people buy Bitcoin because they want freedom. Freedom from inflation, from the banks, from asking permission. Self-custody is a huge part of that. Holding your own keys means nobody else controls your Bitcoin. But running your own node takes you one step further. Now nobody tells you what Bitcoin is. Nobody tells you what your balance is. Nobody tells you whether your transaction is valid. You verify it all yourself. Bitcoin was never designed to replace one trusted third party with another. It was designed so you don't need one at all. And that's why I believe running a node is a crucial step towards Bitcoin sovereignty. If you'd rather have someone guide you through the process, from choosing the hardware to setting up your node, connecting your wallet, securing your seed phrase, and even planning for inheritance, that's exactly what we do at the Bitcoin Way. We start with a free, no-obligation call to understand your situation and help you decide what's right for you. You'll also find a free self-custody guide linked in the description below. If you're already running a node, let me know in the comments what setup you're using. And if you're not, what's holding you back? Until then, stay sovereign.